celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thanks for being with me. KOP here with you for the Wrestling is Real podcast. I've detected a pattern, and it's been going on for years. You know, it's been tough because a lot of podcasters, to try to go and explain what WWE's modus operandi is, for what they've been doing, changing things up pretty radically in the minds of the IWC and my podcast brethren out there, whom I adore and love, and I appreciate and respect. So we know we're all trying to make sense of what is happening and try to make sense of some of the normal tendencies that this company does on a regular basis that we don't understand. But the thing is, you have to look at things more from a historical context. You got to look back and see when WWE has continued to repeat the same habits over and over. And it's almost as if you could just tell when it's Vince McMahon deciding to change course, deciding to do different things. But now it's different. Now, of course, some of my podcast brethren will always talk about the fact of NXT being destroyed, especially after TakeOver War Games, or NXT War Games, no TakeOver, right? Because now you don't see Johnny Gargano and Kyle O'Reilly anymore on NXT. They're basically on the outs and are free agents pretty soon. Same thing can be said about all the other free agent releases that have signed somewhere else or have just, gone on to the indie circuit. Just hearing today on Busted Open, Enzo talking about how he's working with Adam Scherr, former Braun Strowman, and making his way across. I know Enzo actually was featured on this week's MLW episode, MLW Fusion Alpha, which I got to go and catch up and watch because that just dropped in, and I never get the chance to watch it before Dynamite. But we know all these changes happen. I've tried my best in this year since Nick Khan has become a focal point on this program, since I've been talking about it. And of course, I'm going to go back and talk more about what he has done since he joined in, which we know a lot of changes have happened. And I don't blame the company for what they're doing. With broadcast deals in place like they have, so much security in contracts, the Peacock deal, the Fox deal, the NBC Universal deal for USA Network to run NXT and Raw. It's a lot of money coming in. Digital deals that they have in place, working on NFTs, merchandise, all these corporate sponsors to bring on board that are being embedded with their own superstars to go and create ads and marketing and advertising. And just going along with that, creating stadium shows next year. And the thought that I thought the WWE was going to kind of slow things down a little bit. Well, no, they're going to just ramp up house shows. As we talked about, the Sunday of Survivor Series, the upfront presentation that WWE gave with Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon gave a lot of information and really broke things down as to where the direction the company's going. It's changing as a brand. It's swaying away from professional wrestling more than ever and leaning more into sports entertainment more than at any time. But then I've also talked about how they have made changes like this, the stars that have come up when they have gone down this thought process, and why it has worked for them. Now, I've heard arguments both ways. I heard on Busted Open, Tommy Dreamer talking about how Johnny Gargano, that's a guy you want to have in your locker room, even though he's not the big, muscle-bound, athletic type, but you want to have guys like what a Daniel Bryan meant to WWE, what Shawn Michaels or a Bret Hart meant to WWE, when they're not of this certain athletic pedigree or this kind of build that is, a wonder of the world, if you will. That's what they want to think about. I get that part. But we can't just hold on there and say to ourselves, man, they just, for some people, they want to just go ahead and give up or just feel like that they're going to make changes going around. No, there's a certain direction. Nick Khan is in control. There's a story that came out. Dave Meltzer decided to go make point across about how he is favored to replace Vince McMahon. Let me just take exactly what Dave Meltzer said. Because, of course, when he's saying something, you don't take everything to heart. But there is some validity to what he's going to say. And somebody's talking to him, and there could be a lot of validity to what the story is. So at least take heed, grain of salt, but take what he says. But however this came about, Dave Meltzer said this on Wrestling Observer Radio about the fact that Nick Khan is a favorite to take over Vince McMahon's WWE position. Chairman of the board and taking in even more control of day-to-day and the overall operation of the company from a CEO position. So CEO and chairman, he could become. Right now, he's already president and chief revenue officer. So he could step up. Quote, it's kind of a board of directors thing, but, probably Nick Khan replacing Vince McMahon, yeah, unless they went and hired somebody else from the outside, but probably Nick Khan, yes. Now, as you might remember, August 5th, 2020 is when I talked about Nick Khan, or that was when Nick Khan was announced to become the chief financial officer of the WWE. He grew up in Las Vegas, waited on tables after going to UNLV, put himself through law school, got into the agent biz, became one of the most powerful agents in sports media under Creative Artists Agency, and he's now the CFO of WWE. President and Chief Revenue Officer. When there was a long time we were waiting last year where Michelle Wilson and George Barrios were let go. And then eventually they went ahead and went to Nick Khan, who so far has delivered. But now what you have to understand is this. This time of year, WWE is notorious because there's nothing going on really between when we get to the winter time, okay? When winter's here, technically, after SummerSlam, and there are no other pay-per-views necessarily after August, maybe the fallout after SummerSlam. After that, there's nothing else that really stands out that have been very important shows when it comes to the overall subject of really building stars. As we know, the off-season, they don't do that well. And if they do it, they do a really piss poor job. And that's why I call it the WrestleMania offseason for a reason. And I've said it for years. I've said it since day one of this program, of which coming up later this week, I will go ahead and, next week, it'll be me celebrating the 9th anniversary of the program, starting my 10th year. Since then, I've talked about the WrestleMania offseason right here because that's what it's been. When they do other things, part-timers do not come back, and the level of popularity or marquee attractions diminishes because they're trying to go and build other stars off, or they're just kind of just running on autopilot, which I've called them before as well. I've been around long enough, watching this product long enough to know when they're doing this. They're doing it again this year. And believe it or not, I've been able to find times every year for the last 5 years they do this. I actually spent time since I did the post show for War Games and Hard Times 2 on Sunday night. Since when I was watching Raw, I said, okay, I got something here. This is a pattern. And I knew it was kind of there, but it does feel like this is consistent every year. So it is the winner of wishful booking. So yeah, wishful thinking. This is what WWE, they are the experts. They're harbors of wishful thinking. They love to give the fans, the diehard fans, hope for everybody on that roster. Plus the stands, right? The fans that are fans of particular superstars, no matter how high they are up on the totem pole, they still want to see their star succeed. It doesn't matter what it is. Every superstar has their own stands. And so we see that, and we're seeing that right now again. Every year they do this. And then you ask yourself, what makes a difference here? But it always does. And so what good does it do? But we get here all the time, and it just kind of sucks. I know they do this. And then for fans to go ahead and continuously bitch, moan, and complain without really understanding, I'm going to go ahead and lay it out for you. I'm going to show you what they've done the last 5 years. If you want to follow along, I have listed all my talking points about these last 5 years of wishful booking, I call it, air quotes. You can look for it, WrestlingIsReal.com. Go to the website, click on the episode, or just look at the description where you're getting this podcast. I'm leaving it there. I'm leaving it there for you to go and look at yourself. And just go back and look. Do Google searches like I did. Research. See I'm right. Make the point and let other people know about it. Because that's exactly what's happening right now. And what I also want to do tonight is I also want to go into Year of Wrestling 2021, go into part 2, going into WrestleMania season and what WrestleMania season gave us. I'm going to make time to go and talk about that. So let's go ahead and talk about like this. I'll start with this year. At the moment, we have 4 storylines or 4 superstars in the middle of the winter of wishful booking. So Monday night, Liv Morgan challenged Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title, and she lost. DQ, or it was a cheap win, but she lost. But they really tried to build up Liv Morgan in a 1-week turn to do this. And by the way, she is a culprit of wishful booking twice, but we'll talk about that. Then you got Toni Storm challenging Charlotte Flair. As soon as the draft change, NXT call-ups, Shotzi Blackheart has been in and out, quickly made, unimportant. He's now sort of kind of going after Sasha Banks, but they're not making a big deal out of that, and they're not putting a lot of focus behind it. Not enough time for it. Then you got Big E, which for me is the wishful booking. I feel like he's getting the Kofi Kingston type of. He's getting the Kofi Mania push, where it's like you deserve it. 6 months, transition, and then back to another heel. Which could very well, listen, wherever they're going to do with the storyline there, Kevin Owens, I'm guessing, is out the door. Eventually. So he's just right here, kind of just playing along, and I don't know, they're not taking him off storyline. He's still being used to the end. Depending if they're actually going to hold on to him and give him another deal. And if Kevin Owens decides to go back to the Indies as Kevin Steen, he could do that too. But for right now, he's been very loyal. He's been obviously been really good with Vince for all these years. So there's something there. And even Vince, worked in storyline directly with Kevin Owens. There's something that was always there. Kevin Owens always had a different feel to him. And I think it would be tough for him to leave. But he could still do that if he wanted to. Because maybe he's gotten enough what he wanted. He's definitely been able to go and support his family, his kid. I mean, there's a lot there where Kevin Owens could do, but there's not much for him to do left if he does stay there. And I don't know if Kevin Owens is meant to go back for the world title on either side at any point. But he's done a lot there. He just probably might have just outlasted his run. He might have just gone as far as he can go in this company, and he doesn't want to be content. He doesn't want to do what Dolph Ziggler's done, or Sheamus, or Cesaro. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to be a lifer like Edge or Randy Orton or The Miz. Okay, he might not want to be that, and that's okay too. Then Austin Theory. I basically call him the new chosen one. Why is Vince McMahon working with him backstage 2 weeks in a row? Or actually, several weeks in a row. Starting with the whole Cleopatra egg. I don't know. But this storyline's gone on for 4 weeks now. Which is a lot with Vince on camera. Something about that. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I get why Austin Theory could be considered. There's something there in him, I can imagine. I mean, if you're looking just for a professional wrestler, I totally see the benefit in Austin Theory. But I don't see what the WWE would see in him based on what they're going to be trying to do going forward. I don't know yet. Because, and the other thing, too, is that he's doing the selfie thing. He could just be what Tyler Breeze was at one point. I mean, without the Uggs and all the other stuff, but really, what's the difference? I mean, Austin Theory is one-dimensional in this storyline, in what he's doing here. He's had backstory when he worked with, Seth Rollins, where he was basically a prophet. So I don't know what the plan is there, but these stories are wishful booking, where there's going to be a little bit of interest. You're going to see a little minimal effort being done to help build these stars, but we can see a number of things. Number one, the crowds are not buying into it, or they're just not responding well. Because if they did, it will be a different story. But the crowds are dead. Every Raw we're looking at, that's the other thing. These are all Raw, except for one, it's all Raw stories. I mean, Liv Morgan's gotten a little bit of like exposure up, exposure down. I don't know what to think of what she's supposed to, where she is and where she's gone, because this stop and start kind of thing, where she's never been on some kind of a rocket and being launched and going a certain direction and winning a lot of matches, that just hasn't happened. So I'm not sure what to think of Liv Morgan. And I don't know, I'm not one of those people that feel like she's really made a step up onto another level in her work. Liv Morgan's, she's serviceable for the mid-card. Okay, she can wrestle. She has a great appeal. Obviously, fans really do like her. She is likable, attractive, and she's a good performer. I don't think she's much of a promo cut. I mean, in this storyline with Becky Lynch, it's been okay, but I mean, just giving her a script has sucked. But that's just everybody. Like, there's just not a lot of people that are good at taking the bad scripts that WWE writes up all the time, and then they have to go and say these word for word without any changes. And that's part of that, too. It's only certain stars are able to go ahead and pull that off. Now, with Toni Storm, I don't know. She hasn't had much time to go and say much of anything. The storyline they have right now with her and Charlotte Flair are based on pies in the face from a Thanksgiving storyline. Anyways, I've talked about Big E's title reign because he's too attached to New Day. And there's nothing, even in this, because here's the thing. The response he gets is lukewarm. Same thing with Liv Morgan. You can't expect these stars all of a sudden to go ahead and just change, as a matter of fact, when they get the title. The title's supposed to change the perception of you. And these crowds shouldn't just be cheering you because you're WWE champion. They shouldn't be cheering you just because you're Raw Women's champion. They should be cheering you because you are the star of the caliber to be a champion. Perception's reality. I don't feel that with any of them. But we all have hope, right? Even I will still give a little bit of hope. Maybe Liv Morgan, she gets a rematch at day one. Maybe we're going to see something there. Maybe the day one's going to be up for Toni Storm and Charlotte Flair. We know Big E's got to defend against Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. But now Bobby Lashley, wiped the floor of all of them, which I'm glad he's back in the main event picture. Maybe he comes in, takes the belt back. Because why not? Like, I don't get why we need to take the belt off of Bobby Lashley in the first place. Of course, I was one of the few people that said, why? But you gave Big E the Money in the Bank briefcase. He cashed in successfully. But does it need to be that he's going to stay a lengthy champion? Well, if you were able to go and build him better, I mean, he needs to go ahead and he needs to wean off of the New Day. But he's not. The gear isn't changing. His attitude's not changing. His moveset isn't changing. There's nothing there that is any different. Listen, if he's clapping, it's New Day rocks. It's nothing about Big E. If he's doing the gyrations, that's a New Day thing. His gear, New Day thing. His talking, His promo cutting is New Day sound. It's part of a faction, not part of himself. He doesn't have an individual personality. Big E is likable, good performer, very good performer. He worked a great match with Roman Reigns. He's worked good matches with Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. Sure. But now we're here, and I don't see anything that makes me feel like there's any difference. Plus, the numbers on the ratings should make a difference. Roman Reigns makes a difference. Becky Lynch, I believe, does make a little bit of a difference. I mean, it also depends with her on who she's going on against. I mean, the other thing, too, is that we cared more when Bianca Belair was taking on Becky Lynch, because that storyline still had a lot of teeth to it. I mean, that SummerSlam storyline, that shouldn't have changed. The fact that now Doudrop is working with Bianca Belair, I get why. But what I don't get is why they moved away from Bianca Belair so quickly. And that's what's a shame, because that story still needed to be finished. But they decided to go ahead and have Bianca Belair lose multiple times to Becky Lynch, and that's it. We can always reset with some of these stars at Royal Rumble. Plus, some of these stars here in this winter of wishful booking that happens all the time, part of the reason they are built up to a certain point is because of the Rumble. You might not think so, but the Royal Rumble, you want to have certain stars that will get a little bit more of a pop than just some run-of-the-mill NXT star or some jobber that comes out to the ring. And there's a hope that maybe the Royal Rumble, you'll have then more than a handful of people that you could think that could possibly come away from the Royal Rumble with a chance at cashing in a title shot. So they could do that. But let's go ahead and talk more about how they have repeated this pattern. So I've brought you 2021. I'm going to go from current day. I'm going to go backwards. We're going to go back in time. Let's go back to last year during the pandemic in the Thunderdome. Winter 2020. Keith Lee. In December 2020, we learned that Keith Lee was actually scheduled to be pushed, but Vince nixed on it. Remember? He got wins over Randy Orton. He was getting a good round of wins coming up, and they were looking at giving Keith Lee a big push. Then he had that handicap match with Miz and John Morrison. He lost. After that, his star fell. He just started falling down the card. And then they brought him back a little bit, but then COVID, unfortunately, God forbid, that did a real number on him. Very unfortunate. It sucks, but he comes back, new gimmick, Bearcat, and they barely gave that enough time to go anywhere. But they tried something with him. It was going to crash and burn. I don't know. Maybe they knew that the Bearcat thing was going to crash and burn, but they chose, no, we're going to go and cut him now. And that's it. That was winter 2020. Let's move on now to winter 2019. Now, we might remember here, we know that we had executive producers coming in or executive directors, correct? Right? It was Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, supposedly in October of that year, that were going to take over those spots. Pre-pandemic here. Remember those days? And so, with Paul Heyman, he was trying to go and do some things with some younger stars. Remember Mike and Maria Kanellis? Remember that? Ricochet, he got the U.S. title. He had a feud with AJ Styles. Also was featured on the Survivor Series match. Where has he been? I mean, right now they're kind of giving a little bit of a spotlight on SmackDown, but really, Ricochet, there was such a point where he came out of NXT, and what a popularity he had out of there. And then all of a sudden, he comes in here we go, and nothing came of it. And remember, they tried to put him almost like a Superman superhero type in that superhero uniform. That didn't last long. They tried with him, but some of the thoughts they had on how to use Ricochet, because he's a small guy, the next predecessor to Rey Mysterio's type, because that's the guy that could be the David and Goliath type character they could always use, because that's what Rey Mysterio, that's basically what he is. He is the understudy to Rey Mysterio, if you want to call it like that. It's basically that. But then, have Dominic Mysterio that came in who could carry the Mysterio name. So will Ricochet still be a necessity going forward? In winter 2019, we also had Liv Morgan in what was after. It was kind of, the split up of the Riot Squad, because remember, we had a thing where, I forget what Sarah Logan that was like had gone away, and I forget the whole story about that, but Liv Morgan was on her own, remember? She had a whole thing with the bubble bath stuff, and like she was just changing her character, got more glamorous, more of a Trish Stratus direction. I like to think it was. And then we had the Rusev, Lana, Lashley love triangle. And then we noticed that, Rusev was accompanying Liv was accompanying Rusev, while Lana and Lashley were getting married, and that whole storyline came in. Listen, that was a train wreck, but it was a train wreck I did enjoy watching. And it was also a chance for Bobby Lashley to get his hands on something different than being, working with Sami Zayn after his return, and the whole thing with his sisters. Remember that part? Oh, man. So Bobby Lashley had something to work off for enough here. And him and Rusev, that was a match I wanted to see. That was fun. Then there was the push for Humberto Carrillo. Remember how much time we had him out there? And we were asking, why did this guy all of a sudden come on here? Yeah, good-looking guy, whatever. And he was a good wrestler, but they kept putting him out there every week on Raw, and it just didn't work. Nobody was caring. It just didn't matter. And so he was out there, and it didn't do a thing. Then you had, I remember at TLC that year, Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy. Those guys had a feud with each other. No, I mean, I want to pick a fight, right? That part. How far has Aleister Black gone now as Malachi Black? I mean, come on, That guy has had his on and off with Cody Rhodes. Now he's dealing with the Varsity Blondes and spewing the black mist in the poor sweet Julia Hart's face. So I guess, does that mean Brian Pillman Jr. gets to go and go after Malachi Black, or does Andre and Malachi Black now start fizzing off Varsity Blondes? I mean, obviously Varsity Blondes, they have plans for him. They like to show him on dark all the time. Let me tell you that. And Julia Hart. But yeah, that was a featured match. And we all thought, Buddy Murphy's going to go somewhere. No. Remember we had that wasn't it a Superstar Showdown we had that year in Australia? And he had that big deal over there too. And then just nothing. He's gone too. I mean, what? These are the things they do. These are guys who are no longer there 2 years later. Gone. Then we had Drew Gulak and his mentorship with Daniel Bryan. Remember that? Wasn't that long ago? That was SmackDown. Was it SmackDown or was that Raw? I forget. But yeah, this was after the new Daniel Bryan and all that stuff. And yeah, Daniel Bryan just kind of moving along, and just, Drew Gulak, I believe he's still there, right? I don't remember if Drew Gulak's still there or not. Again, 71 releases. Kind of hard to keep track, okay? Tell you what. Then the other thing that, oh my goodness, for those of you that watch the NXT Black and Gold brand, okay, NXT 1.0, yes, this is your watershed moment. You were like, the best of NXT right here. They invade SmackDown leading up to Survivor Series. Remember that? So we had matches leading up to it, and then there was the whole thing where Crown Jewel, Saudi Arabia, the airplane mechanical issues, the whole thought, it's like a terrorist situation. The superstars are being held hostage. That whole thing, and Vince got to pay off the sheiks and all. They're going to get the planes back over, and they held them back, and they cut off the feet and all that bullshit, right? And wasn't even the Jamal Khashoggi? Wasn't that also the reporter that got killed? All that's going on, right? What a mess. But they had a SmackDown, which, by the way, on Fox. So they had to go and deliver something. And there was only a couple of stars that were left in the States when most of their main roster was overseas. So the NXT stars had to step up last minute, and they had some great matches. Remember Adam Cole and Daniel Bryan? They had a clinic out there. Rhea Ripley confronting Charlotte Flair. And then you had that storyline with Rhea Ripley where Charlotte Flair wins the Rumble the following year. And then she goes ahead and then goes after Rhea Ripley for the title. Remember that? After the NXT title, after the winning Royal Rumble, she decided, no, I want to go after that belt. I want to go after Rhea's belt. Right. That's winter 2019. Do you see the pattern now? I'm only halfway through the show, and look at that. Look at what I'm already giving you as examples. I am showing you the case. The evidence it speaks for itself. Winter 2018, the McMahons. Remember this one? It was December 17th, 2018. And this is after the SmackDown deal gets signed. And the McMahons will once again run Raw and allegedly will give fans what they want. Do we remember that? Vince McMahon addressing fans being unhappy with Raw lately at the top of the show this week, announcing his family will once again be in charge. Remember that? I do. And I've talked about on this show extensively. All the McMahons coming out and Triple H. The whole family. Stephanie explaining the days of absentee management are over. And they will take back Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live. How long did that last? Baron Corbin was GM of Raw. Remember that? Yeah. The McMahon family will empower the superstars and fans. And more importantly, quote from Triple H, we're going to give you what you want. I love it. This is what this company does. And for those of you that actually get pissed off, I don't get like that anymore. There was a time I was on this show, I did get kind of pissed off. And I ranted pretty good about it. But, my cynicism has taken the best of me now. I don't feel that way anymore. But it's funny. But that's what happened now. Do you see the trend? More of the pattern here. That was winter 2018. I'm not even going to get into what they did in 2018, but that says itself. Let's go to winter 2017. And look at where things have gone. Now, this is a different story because, a couple of these superstars have gone in certain directions. I have to admit. Paige returning, long from an injury, and forming Absolution with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Remember that? That was in winter 2017, November. She comes back, and then Paige gets hurt again, and then Mandy and Sonya tag team it, and of course, everything's kind of changed down the line. Sonya Deville is now an official on SmackDown and Raw. She's basically a general manager, a co-general manager with Adam Pearce. They don't call it that, but that's what they are right now, and they're both playing heel roles. Mandy Rose has changed quite a bit. They always had an eye on her, and they always wanted to find some way to get her over if they could. And looks like they figured it out. In NXT 2.0, Toxic Attraction. They got it. They figured out what to do with Mandy Rose. And Mandy Rose has found herself. She has found the role of character she is meant to be playing. Change her hair color. Add 2 girls to her faction. Create a trio. They got it. Now Toxic Attraction, that is something you can marquee with. People will watch for Toxic Attraction. And they're already doing it right now on NXT 2.0. They gave them belts, all of them. And they can move on up. Yeah. That can all work. Remember when they gave us Titus Worldwide? The last time they really tried to do anything with Titus O'Neil, Titus has always been like, oh, let's tag team him here and there. Let's put him together with Darren Young, No Days Off. Primetime players. The way Abraham Washington at the time. Whew, that's a long time ago. And then, of course, he had to say something stupid about Kobe Bryant to go and get himself fired. And then that was when Apollo Crews came up from NXT and they put him in with him. And then they added Dana Brooke as like the hot secretary going along, working with them. Titus Worldwide was a business, an entrepreneurship. How long did that last? And then Titus and Apollo broke up. That part. These were all things they actually put some kind of forward thinking into, and they did a half-ass effort on getting all this done where something was going somewhere. But these are all just creative ideas that have just been poorly executed, and have gone to shit. Or for some of them, it resulted in stars getting let go, which we know a number of these stars are no longer there. Or something happened to them where this just all fizzled out. Okay, one more year. Winter 2016. Remember the Cruiserweight Classic? Remember the Cruiserweight division? When they changed the ropes, they changed the ring to purple. Remember that? Now, it has moved over to NXT as the Cruiserweight Championship. So remember, 2016, summer of that year, they had the tournament. T.J. Perkins, Grand Metalik, Rich Swann, the Brian Kendrick coming back, Drake Maverick, Mustafa Ali, Cedric Alexander. These are all people that came out of that. And then, changed, right? 205 Live, which is still a thing. I still can't believe it. Gentleman Jack Gallagher was part of that too. Tajiri was in it. Noam Dar. Remember Noam Dar? Incredible what they did. Now, the Cruiserweight Classic was a big deal, and everybody was really into that. Just like the Mae Young Classic, just like the Dusty Rhodes Classic. That's the stamp that Triple H left, because he's the one who was all behind those tournaments after Dusty passed away. And so you had all that going on. Those are all good things. I mean, how many stars really came out of that moved over into the main roster? That's what was the reason why, no matter how good it was, it didn't serve the purpose of the main roster that Vince wanted. Which is why, when I talk about NXT Invasion, how many of those stars actually stood out and got moved over to the main roster and really went somewhere? Remember, wasn't that long ago we had, what was it, about 5 different stars that came through? War Raiders, EC3, Lacey Evans, Lars Sullivan. You know, when you were starting to see the influx of NXT talent that would just be brought up. Now, whether they were ready or not, and whether their gimmicks had been down there long enough for them to go and build some momentum, I mean, sure, the main roster always did a bad job of just deciding when to call somebody up. It wasn't after a proper time, after, there's such a momentum on this person. Now, like they've been in the minor leagues, they moved to the AAA system. They've been playing a lot of games. They got some time. They got some experience under their belt. No, they never worried about that. They felt like, okay, pick this person up. It was just calling up people just to call them up. That's what they did. But we're not going to get those days anymore. The fact that we would see, the inaugural tournament of the Cruiserweight Classic and all these 205 Live stars, and seeing other stars coming in like Zack Sabre Jr. or Kota Ibushi, of all people, right? Yeah, that was pretty fun, but yeah, we're not getting that again. It's just not. Tony Nese was in there, and now he's over at AEW. It's amazing. All that you had here. And, they made a whole World Cup kind of thing, too. And, it was really great. Those days are gone. And what they do with them in the main roster, it doesn't work. Which is why the changes at NXT 2.0, you're seeing, obviously, the people they're trying to push. And the ones they push out every week. Duke Hudson, Grayson Waller, Joe Gacy, Braun Breaker, Toxic Attraction, Zion Quinn, Sala Sikoa, and Von Wagner. Look at all those names. And you're going to recognize those names. Constant exposure on NXT 2.0 to the point that you're going to then eventually see them move up to the main roster. they'll probably have an easier transition into the main roster than they would have if you were a Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, Raquel Gonzalez, Dakota Kai, Tegan Knox, right? Kaylee Ray. Like there's a lot of good stars there that are not going to fit the mold now because WWE has fed up with trying to go ahead and make professional wrestlers into the mold they want. And they tried it for so long that they need to change and give up. Because now they've realized that the crop of talent they've been going after, trying to go after all these free agents and trying to go ahead and just cut through and find stars that already knew how to wrestle and then take care of the last part, that became more difficult than just taking somebody they could just pick up off of a playing field, out of a wrestling mat, out of a track and field setup, out of a football stadium, out of a basketball arena. They could take those stars and make quicker work and get better stars they want. Because then you're talking about stars in that new LNI, the name, likeness, image, next in line program. You see what's going to happen there is with those stars, all right, when you're seeing the likes of Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, Kevin Owens, and others on the way out, that's because professional wrestling is in their blood, and they can find professional wrestling promotions to work in now. There was a time before AEW became so prominent as it is today where there wasn't any other places really to go. But then I said, even going back to 2016, you could do what some stars did, like Alberto Del Rio and AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, where you can make a good living working Japan, working Mexico, working Ring of Honor, working other promotions, and doing fine without needing WWE. But now we're at the point where now we're seeing that everybody can do that. So professional wrestlers have a place to go. The days of not having into the territories to go, and that WWE was the only place to really make a living. Now, you could go ahead and scrap a couple of bucks and ride all over the country and book yourself, but now there's so many places to go work and to make some significant money. And you have another promotion that now stands out that you get real big exposure. AEW is as important for professional wrestlers now as WWE is. But WWE would normally give you more money, even though you're still stuck to an independent contract, and you'd get even bigger exposure and the chance to get yourself to Hollywood. But most of those professional wrestlers don't need that. With these athletes, you can't just go ahead and get into WWE and then say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to go back into football. I'm going to go back into baseball. I'm going to go back into wrestling or Olympics. It's not, that transition can't be that easy. And I'm sure Nick Khan's thought about this. Who are stars we can get that, they're going to need us because, unless they go ahead and go back to school and they go find another trait or find another skill set, whether it's accounting, whether it's business, entrepreneurship, something else, management, whatever, they would have to go back to school and start back over again. Because you're taking those stars, these athletes that they had a particular career, but if they're not going into football because they have the injuries or have something else they're going to do, then they're just going to go into wrestling. And they're going to be stuck there. They're going to kind of be pigeonholed. So they're going to be behooving on what WWE wants to do with them, and they're going to just want to stay because, they're athletes. It's not like it's going to be that easy for them just to go to some other career. They're career athletes. That's what they're picking up right now. So when they get these career athletes, okay, say a Gable Steveson, if he stays around for 4 or 5 years, how easy it's going to be for him to go back in and go compete with the young studs in an Olympic wrestling, and go into, Olympic trials and then try to go ahead and earn himself a spot on the Olympic team. It's not going to be that easy. That makes sense to me. The other thing they have to worry about is, are they going to be able to go ahead and find a way to bring the stars in? They're not going to have this skill set because obviously the casual fans and the new fans are trying to bring in the young fans. It's not going to matter to them. It's going to be the sports entertainment quotient, the big top, these big stars coming in that are going to have 5 moves of doom. All of them. Their own certain move set. It's going to be simple, and we're going to get back to that again. And it's not going to matter what AEW and other shows are doing. Because these other stars are going to bring in, they're going to worry about them doing Canadian destroyers or, doing a lot of high spots. No, probably not. They don't care about that now. And I think that's where they're thinking of where things are going. You might not like it, but learn to love it, because that's just the way things are today. And I hope you get where I'm coming from when it comes to the winter of wishful booking. The other example I can give in winter 2016 was Jason Jordan. Remember, he joins, and this is after they broke up American Alpha. That was off to some decent start. Had a good run at NXT. They brought him up and they split him off. And Jordan and Seth Rollins defeated Cesaro and Sheamus, the Bar, to capture the Raw Tag Team titles. And held the belts until Royal Rumble, 34 days. So, what was that going to be? Right? It was also, Jason Jordan, I believe, was in the Survivor Series match that year, too. Fresh rookie. That was the star they were looking at. Stan Gable, stand aside. That's what they did there. Because of that wrestling background as well. But he was just a bigger guy, just had the look, taller, at all the attributes, all the tools. But Jason Jordan, in the short time, he was able to be the first person in WWE to hold the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT Tag Team Championships. And now he got injured with something serious. Did the whole deal with him being Kurt Angle's son. And now he's a producer backstage. That's it. So let's go move along into the year in wrestling, part 2 of 2021. I had mentioned WrestleMania time, outthinking the obvious. So we already knew at this point Edge was going to take on Roman Reigns because Edge won the Royal Rumble. He said, okay, we're going to have this match, which was a match we were waiting for a while back, but then they finally give us this match now. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks, which we know that was a bomb. A hell of a, not bomb, it was the bomb. Let me just say it was a great match. And really, that was what put Bianca Belair in a permanent spot near the main event. Like, that made her a star that night. I mean, she absolutely stood out there, and everything that was going on with her was great. Then we had the deal with Bad Bunny, accompanying Damian Priest, and the whole deal with him and Miz and Morrison. Randy Orton dealing with The Fiend. Can't believe it's been that long. And then we had Shane McMahon and Braun Strowman. Remember? You stupid. Right? Wasn't that long ago? This is all the Thunderdome stuff, remember? So we had that part, and that was in March. Then we move along, and then we had AEW The Living Revolution. And on that night, Dr. Britt Baker was working with Maki Ito in a tag team match to beat Riho and Thunder Rosa as a tag team. Young Bucks were champions at this point as faces, defeated Inner Circle, Death Triangle, and Rey Fenix defeated Jungle Boy in a casino tag team battle royal for a future AEW World Tag Team match. Hikaru Shida was still running as champion at this time. Man, how long ago was this? Miro and Kip Sabian were still together. And the wedding, I don't think it happened yet. And they were taking on best friends. What a difference we've had now in what AEW, where they've gone, what they've become. Look, what a difference in what they had going on here. So we know that at the start of 2019, Sting had just come in. Winter is coming. Sting arrived, debuts, which is where we're going to Winter is Coming next week. It'll have been a year that Sting has been here, working with Darby Allin. Been great. Darby Allin and him have been just really good fusion together. it's been really good. And Darby Allin has, stood out quite a bit. I think his star has risen quite a bit in some of the matches he's had. And at the time, Darby Allin and Sting defeated Team Taz, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks in a street fight. And Kenny Omega, at this point, was champion after Winter is Coming. And that night was the infamous but exploding barbed wire death match for the AEW World Title. Yeah, Eddie Kingston being stuck out there, and Jon Moxley Eddie Kingston coming out trying to save Jon Moxley from an exploding barbed wire. Which the exploding barbed wire was good within the match, but of course the close was bad. We'll never forget that. And of course, sour WWE fans will never let the barbed wire death match. They will never let that go. They'll hold that. Oh, we got them. Oh yeah, they suck. Ah. That's what they did. Man, you forget what's going on here. So, like I said, but like AEW's exploding barbed wire death match. Hey man, they tried it. I guess give them with that. And I just remember that the mistakes were being made. And I just remember I took one show where I just talked about this match. And I just decided to go ahead and just go after WWE and the mistakes they made and how it was going on like that, right? I go into March and I talk about Fastlane and how WWE was feeling like an aging soap opera versus AEW's Pinnacle Proclamation, which, Pinnacle's been around, but, they haven't really done much with the faction together as a whole. It's kind of just still there, but they haven't made it a big deal. Like MJF, Wardlow, and Spears working together, and FTR is just kind of like just doing their own thing against Lucha Brothers, and they've all kind of just been dividing and conquering, which is fine. Fastlane, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler were champions at this point for the World Women's Tag Team titles, and Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair teamed up to take them on. Then Roman Reigns defeated Daniel Bryan for the Universal title, and found a way to get into WrestleMania to make that a triple threat, which was a very great triple threat. Let's just say that. Now, when I talk about Big E, listen, don't get me wrong. The Big E at the start of the year was Intercontinental Champion. And that normally when you have that belt, that is the precursor for someone to go into the main title run, which was not going to be Roman Reigns. It was going to be, but they decided to do this with Apollo Crews. And then Apollo Crews also undergoing the change to the Nigerian, royalty. And all that. And of course, that show we had Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton in the intergender match. When Bray Wyatt, when they took him out of the picture, and yeah, that right there. Oh boy, fun. I don't forget all that stuff. And then I talked about where Fastlane, which by the way, the fact they're not going to do Fastlane, I guess, or not doing Elimination Chamber, they're going to just do one pay-per-view between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. That's promising. Like, what the hell are they going to do to get that going? Because, right now, we don't know what we already know Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. That's going to probably roll into WrestleMania. If I had to look at what WrestleMania will be next year, if Becky Lynch needs an opponent, I think it's Alexa Bliss. Because I believe she's still on Raw, and they could definitely bring her back. I don't know if they'll keep her in the Fiend character or if she gets to undergo that change back to something more that's not a cartoon character. That she gets back to being more of a woman and just, altering her role. But I'd love to see Alexa Bliss back, and I think her and Becky Lynch would be fantastic together. And as for Charlotte, I think her and Sasha Banks, I think they rekindle that feud again, too. They could go back to that coming up. And this is where the wishful booking of Toni Storm, that goes by the wayside. And the wishful booking of Liv Morgan goes by the wayside too. Because then they'll get some other stars to come in, the ones that have been around and the ones that they have the faith in to rekindle feuds and start them up again. That's what I think is going to happen. And then March 25th, I did an episode, which was episode 600 of the program. I paid tribute to the 20th anniversary of the closing of WCW and the final Monday Nitro in Panama City Beach at Club La Vila. The fall of WCW. I had mentioned Ring of Honor having their 19th anniversary that week. They're not going to make it to 20. That's a damn shame. I mean, and you just forget how long Ring of Honor's been around, and you see that there. I'm like, that's just sad. Horrible. Yeah, and now moving along here, we get to WrestleMania. And then I go in here and I talk about the constant House of Cards headache. That creative has gone overboard. You know, I was just at it because, you know, they're just not giving us anything special. I call it a House of Cards headache. They were just setting things up just to fail. They were just weak storylines, weak everything on what they were setting up. And then April 8th, the Wednesday Night Wars concluded. NXT would be moved off of Wednesday nights and moved to Tuesdays. So AEW would then finally be left alone to run solo. And so far, they've been able to get their ratings back up. They did have a little bit of a bump now, where they're not able to get back up to 1 million viewers, given what was going on with the show moving for the NHL playoffs and the NBA playoffs. And all of that going on. So they had to go move for a number of weeks off to Friday nights and Saturdays. No, that didn't help. And then I got into WrestleMania. I talked about NXT TakeOver that they had Stand and Deliver. I remember they had enough to do that over 2 nights. And look at the names they have lost since then. Zoe Stark defeated Toni Storm. Pete Dunne defeating Kushida. Bronson Reed defeating Isaiah Swerve Scott. Cameron Grimes, LA Knight. Dexter Lumis, Leon Ruff. 6-man eliminator match. Walter defeating Tommaso Ciampa. NXT UK title. MSK over Grizzled Young Veterans. Legado del Fantasma triple threat match versus in NXT vacant NXT tag team titles. Raquel Gonzalez became NXT Women's Champion at that point to lose it to Mandy Rose. And then the second night we had Killian Dane and Drake Maverick being Breezango. Santos Escobar defeating Jordan Devlin to determine the undisputed NXT Cruiserweight Champion. Ember Moon, Shotzi Blackheart as a team together, taking on The Way for the NXT Women's Tag Team titles. And The Way still had Austin Theory alongside them and Johnny Gargano, and he defeated Bronson Reed for the NXT North American title. Karrion Kross in his heyday going up against Finn Balor for the NXT title to get back what he had not lost because he had got hurt to injury. And then an unsanctioned match, another one of those like just beat down, drawn out battles with Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, the former Future Shock members of Ring of Honor, and just remembering that those guys just laid it down. Did they break up at the end of the Undisputed Era? And that feud they had, which is another one of those marquee moments in the history of NXT that a lot of people are going to still remember and love. They're going to say, what happened? What happened to NXT? Why do we have this 2.0? What happened to the black and gold? Why is it all rainbows? And then we talk about WrestleMania, where it was all about Bianca, Bobby, and Bad Bunny. And of course, WrestleMania Night 1 was great. I loved it. Bianca Belair did a great job. And just the emotion that came from her and the win that she got, hell of a night for her. She'll always have that night in Tampa. Can never take it away from her. I don't like what they've done with her since. They gave her, up to SummerSlam with the belt, and then getting Sasha Banks back in to go ahead and feud once more, and then having to bring Becky Lynch back in, which I wish they didn't bring her back right away. But she's here anyway, and they haven't had much of a chance, really much to work with her on. They blew off the Bianca Belair feud. And now we're here with Liv Morgan. I'm like, wow. Becky Lynch was just brought back because they needed to bring her back for house shows. They needed to bring her back for the ratings. And that was it. But that was all they did. It was one of those tricks they had in their bag that WWE needed to do to get their touring up and to get their shows up once the crowds came back. That's what she was used for. So don't even think about that they had some idea of what storylines they had for her or what kind of programs she was going to be in. They didn't. They're doing it on the fly as they always do. And then the second night, Roman Reigns retaining the double pin, stacked pin, excellent. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens working with each other as they always do. They work great together. Logan Paul being a part of that, remember that? Bad Bunny. I mean, impressed everybody. Wowed everyone on how well he did in the tag team match with Damian Priest against Miz and Morrison. He showed everybody that guy was just a fan. He was willing to go through all of it. Yeah, pandemic, yes, but he actually went through everything, and he looked impressive. He showed if you're going to be a celebrity that's going to come in to where the big boys play and work it, he did. And Roman Reigns finally get back in front of a crowd with this long run as heel champion, which is now almost coming up on 500 days. And Roman Reigns has he's been the all-star of this company. The star they always wanted. They got it right with him. They got it right with Roman Reigns. Or somewhere down the line, if Brock Lesnar, and Roman and Paul Heyman, they get a whole screw job on Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns loses the belt and becomes a face, man, you could tell that story between now and WrestleMania, and I'll tell you, it would be amazing. But Roman Reigns is a bona fide star. He is what John Cena and what The Rock and all these other stars are before him. And it's difficult to find any other stars that can reach that level. Really hard. But that's the guy. I'm telling you, when you want to watch, that is the number one person I know. If I'm watching SmackDown or watching WWE in general, if Roman Reigns is on my TV, I'm paying attention. He catches my attention. That guy is the draw. More than anybody else. And then The Fiend loses to Randy Orton. And that just that's it. You never expect anything else from Bray Wyatt after that. That's what they were going to do. What was their plan? Okay, so that takes us to WrestleMania. We go post-WrestleMania on the next part of the Year in History of Wrestling 2021 on the next episode. But as for now, actually, I don't know if I'll do it this week or not, but what is going to be bittersweet this weekend, and I don't know if a lot of people are talking about it much, but it's sad to see it, but there is one more pay-per-view left this year, and that's Ring of Honor's Final Battle, which is most likely the end of an era. Yes, the company's going on hiatus, but there's been no announcement at all. And they've been doing they've had people going on, and they're getting announcements about it. People are definitely talking about it, which is fine. But people are all expecting that Ring of Honor is going to fold. This company's not coming back after this Friday. Or this Saturday, excuse me. There'll be a wild card 10-man tag match in the pre-show. And at the moment, this is the current card for Final Battle. Chelsea Green and the Hex, which is Allison Kay and Marty Bell, will take on Angelina Love, Mandy Leon, and Miranda Alice in a 6-woman tag team match. Dragon Lee versus Ray Orris. Shane Taylor Promotions, Moses Khan, and O'Shea Edwards versus The Righteous, Vincent Bateman, and Dutch. Dalton Castle will be in a 4-way match for the Ring of Honor TV title, defending against Silas Young, Joe Hendry, and Rhett Titus. Brody King, Homicide, and Tony Deppen in a 6-man tag will take on Tracy Williams, Tilly Rust, and Eli Isom. A fight without honor match. Shane Taylor versus Kenny King. Ring of Honor Pure Championship, Josh Woods versus Brian Johnson. Ring of Honor tag team titles, the Briscoes. Maybe they'll go out of Ring of Honor as the champs, going against OGK. Roxy defends the Women's World Championship against Willow Nightingale. And Bandito defends the Ring of Honor World title against Jonathan Gresham. Well, I'll put it like this. I'm going to just put some predictions. Jonathan Gresham, I think he closes this out as world champion. I think the Briscoes get the titles again as a nice bittersweet finish to them for them in this promotion. I'll take Josh Woods in the Ring of Honor Pure title. I'll take Roxy in the Women's World title match. Even though Willow Nightingale, I wouldn't be surprised if they give her the belt. I'll take the faces and Brody King, Homicide, Tony Depp, and Tracy Williams, Taylor Russ, Eli Isom. I will take Titus to win the Ring of Honor TV title. And I'll take Shane Taylor's Promotions over the Righteous. I'll take Dragon Lever Ray Orris. And I'll take Chelsea Green and the Hex over Angelina Love, Mandy Leon, and Miranda Alice. I'll take that. I will do a post show after this event. I mean, I can't believe it's here. This sucks. This really sucks. I don't know how much of a crowd they're going to have at this show. It will be in Baltimore. I don't know what kind of a crowd they're going to have for it. Hopefully there'll be a good crowd out there for this anyway. It looks like it's a near sellout right now. They have a few spots available in the lower section. Now, actually, you know what? That's probably where they're I don't know if they're going to actually have that whole part of the arena actually filled. But they still have tickets available if you want to go. It's an historical event. I mean, people should keep an eye on this and see what happens. But I'll have some things to say about Ring of Honor and this dropping off here. But I will do a post show for that. I want to make sure to go and talk about it. You know, I've been able to go and watch this show since it moved to Sinclair. And I got to watch Ring of Honor when it came on the Sinclair Broadcast Networks 2011, September 24th. So I got to watch Ring of Honor for half its run. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. I didn't think the TV show was that great, but I did watch some of it for the most part. And I try to catch all their pay-per-views. Well, not all of them, but I would try to catch the ones that were really important. Much like how Impact Wrestling does their shows, the Big Four. So it's always the anniversary show, Best of the World, Death Before Dishonor, Final Battle. That's usually the ones I would definitely cover. If I got to do the ones that were New Japan, whether it was the G1 Supercard or others, we'll go ahead and pay tribute to Ring of Honor on the program, and we'll talk about that. So that's this Saturday. I will do a show on Saturday night to go ahead and cover that. And we'll pay tribute to Ring of Honor. The end of an era. Which never had to be, but, you know, it's unfortunate to think of how long these guys had run and how long they lasted. Now, I like to see if there's going to be a lot of tributes going to be written prior to this event. I know nobody's going to try to say it's done, but I don't see how it's not. So there we go. I'll leave it there. Come back this weekend for the Wrestling is Real podcast. Enjoy Final Battle, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.